Welcome to Divergent Fitness. I'm Mike with your Mentoring Monday. So, we're talking about anxiety for the next several weeks. And the first tip that I want to give you is understanding how to look at or define anxiety in a different way. For me, I'm giving you kind of my personal experience with anxiety and what are the steps that I took to, I guess, deal with the negative functions of it or the negative side effects. Um, the first thing that I had to do is to understand anxiety a little bit better. We tend to look at things from a good or bad kind of perspective. You have symptoms that you're feeling all day long. Maybe you're experiencing panic attacks and your heart's pumping, you can't concentrate at work. You're pretty much going through your day and enduring every aspect of it. Even when you're with your family, you feel things inside and you're trying to be happy. And maybe you are actually happy, but the experience of it day to day is pretty draining because of the symptoms that you're feeling. And I pretty much felt that for like the last 10 years up until a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, until I started to understand it better. So the first thing was to understand that anxiety is simply a function. It's a driver towards the sympathetic side of the nervous system, which is fight and flight. Um, but to take it a step further, I really had to understand the difference between fight and flight. So fighting would be more towards the anger as the driver towards that side. And to me, that's a little bit more of a powerful emotion to have. Whereas anxiety or flight would be moving away from or avoidance. So I'll give you an example from my personal experience. Um, I have a sensitivity towards social concerns, which means that I'm very aware of my symptoms. And when I go into social settings, when I was a kid, it used to be restaurants. So every time I went to a restaurant, I would have a panic attack. And then basically, the sensitivity is where I go to fail. So when I enter that social situation, I know I'm going to have that panic attack, and then it happens, and then stupid fly. Um, and then that happens and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then whatever happens after is what happens. I retreat and back into my cave. So being on the flight side of the wheel, let's say, you're mostly enduring or you're um, running away. So in fight, you have a much more powerful drive towards what you're doing, whereas in flight, you're moving away from. So even though both of those things are on one side of the wheel, we are there's a difference there. So you don't want to be there versus I want to be there. And for me, a lot of the times I was doing situations in my life, whether it was social gatherings, parties, and a lot of times the way I was going about my exercising had to come from that enduring side or kind of checking the boxes. So the biggest lesson I can give you is to understand, one, first is that anxiety is just a function, meaning that it's necessary. It's something that's natural in nature. So if you were walking down in the dark woods or something like that at nighttime, and the bush moves, that anxiety is there to alert you in case you need to run fast, right? So it's a normal function. Is just that we look at it as a bad thing when we're suffering the way that we're suffering. But once you understand the actual function of anxiety, now we can start to uncover, why is it that I'm having these feelings in this setting when there is no bear coming? I'm not actually in the woods. There's no need for me to fight or flight. So why would I have this feeling of anxiety? And then from there, to start to peel away the layers of, if that is the case, why am I entering the situation as if I am going to fight the bear? And then we can begin the work from there. So really powerful thing to understand, that anxiety is just a function, and that there is a difference between fighting and flight, and then trying to figure out how can we best match the nervous system state that you want to be in versus the one that you're actually in. That's our tip for today.